least favorite or just disappointing moments. They don't have to pertain to yourselves, but to on my aspect as well. Is there anything you wish I had done or regret? Just the fact that I annoyed you or aggravated you in some way that, became a bother. Like, why didn't you do this, storyteller?
I did want more willpower.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be the thing because it's the only thing I can think of that was the only point where, and it just comes down to, I mean, we knew you weren't like in depth with the whole thing and memorized every single rule and knew played the thing to hell and back and the thing. So it was just sort of, hey, we knew that from the start.
I just felt like after a certain point, it was almost like we didn't have willpower pools because we couldn't really risk spending any of it.
Universally true, goddammit. You look at fucking Byron Rand, man. Shit, guy had willpower coming out the ass.
Yeah, he was paranoid about spending it because he knew he could never recover it, because he was the worst conniver ever.
Pretty much. I could not. Maybe you people could have figured out ways to do it, but I would sit there like after a game, and I would think, well, maybe the day after. I was pretty tired after most game sessions, and I was like, what can I do in this game universe? And I would try. I would say, and that was like, well, they would all take multiple game sessions. It would be like, I want to do an end run around Gavin. That's something I sent to Grimith at one point. I want to get some guy. I want to go to political events and find someone to like make other connections to get around that. And maybe I could not think of any immediate way to do it in each game session. Maybe I just was blind to it. And I wasn't going to do it to a coterie mate because that, for Byron, it didn't make sense. It's like, if I screw over the people I'm in business with, it can only hurt me. So he was looking for anyone but his coterie. But yeah, I could have screwed the coterie over left, right, and up, but it seemed to defeat the purpose.
Nah, he would have just eaten another foot sandwich.
I've definitely mentioned the willpower on several occasions throughout the campaign, and I've made it clear to you guys, like, bring it up to me at the end of a session if you feel that your character, has fulfilled the nature to earn the willpower, and don't be afraid to try to construct something to fit in with your character's nature. I mean, that's your character's nature. It's what he does. Looking at the rule system and thinking about it, it's possible I handled the willpower situation poorly, but at the same time, I didn't want willpower to be so readily available to give you all successes so easily. I wanted there to, especially for, someone who wouldn't invest much in willpower, I wanted it to be real and tangible, like, there are always opportunity cost, and it's not going to come back every night, and, I mean, if you want to spend it on a guaranteed success here, you might not have it for later. Byron with, of course, 9 willpower points, he didn't have his willpower replenished that much over the course of the game. He didn't end up put into that many situations where he ended up expending them, whereas someone like David Green constantly fucking, dangled on the precipice with his fingertips. And it ends up being one of those situations where I honestly don't know the right answer. It ends up being like with handling humanity and when vampires wake up. I don't know. I just took a shot, and obviously I can understand as players you'd want to have more willpower because current willpower is nice to have. In addition, for instant successes, it also serves as protections against disciplines that target current willpower. It's just kind of like, I think about it now, and I don't hate the choice I made. I don't dislike it. I feel if you guys had a more ready source of willpower that, not that I'm adverse to your character succeeding more, but it just would have been like, I will use this and I'll get at least one guaranteed success on this non-combat situation. I don't know. I mean, Aaron likes to see his characters fail, but he could have used the willpower to patch it up so that his characters didn't fail. Yeah, I don't know.
It's true. I just feel like it got to a point where we practically didn't have spendable willpower. at all. But I could see it definitely going in the opposite direction, which I feel would have been worse.
I'll throw that back in the situation. Like, Jordan obviously used, Marcus there towards the end to do willpower type things, and he put more points in the willpower. Byron, who had 9 points of willpower, even though he wasn't able to utilize his nature that well, still had a reservoir of willpower. David ended up having 4 points of willpower permanently. It's kind of like he didn't have a whole lot. He also did some crazy shit. Crazy shit. I don't disagree with the choice I made. I'm neutral about it, sort of ambivalent. Like, I accept the fact that it wasn't the best one for game balance, just like I accept the fact that I have no idea what time should have started, and I'm sure I could have consulted a search engine and I would have pulled up different answers about it. It comes down to the point where I wish White Wolf had thrown me a better lifeline on the affair. And rather than the optional stuff, I don't know, just given me more information about it rather than ideas on how willpower could replenish.
I'm just glad you didn't decide something like with discipline training times. Yeah, you know what? It's gonna take you 5 years in order to learn Protein 1. I mean, it's an out-of-clan unique discipline. Come on.
I mean, come on, guy.
I wanted to have you guys the opportunity to use some of those tools you had been thinking about. The only exception probably being Demontation 3. I hate divination bullshit. It annoys me. Not so much when it's done at a... Go ahead, sorry.
And the one time I really wanted it to work, I botched and I couldn't use it anymore.
It's not that you couldn't use it anymore, just not on market. After an indeterminate amount of time. Too. I wasn't sure what to do with that. Like, it gives you ideas like, in case of like a critical failure, sometimes it specifies, like, you fuck up on a dominate or a presence, it's like, don't use this for the rest of the story. This character's immune. And I'm like, Demontation, what happens if you botch? I'm like... I need more suggestions, White Wolf. Throw me another fucking lifeline here. This book is so fucking huge, you're not helping me. 55 pages of detail about the setting is not useful whenever I don't know how to adjudicate this. They're like, why don't you know how to adjudicate? This is the 20th anniversary edition. If you'd actually been playing this game for any length of time, Grimith, you'd fucking know how to do this. I'm like, fuck you, White Wolf.
No, you wouldn't.
No, I just
still be fucking clueless.
Yeah, I just did when you mentioned, I did a Google search for when do vampires wake up according to their humanity, and yeah, there are like 5 different answers within the first 5 Google entries.
The only difference is you'd have already homebrewed it. Which, I mean, I guess that's technically a solution.
And I ended up retconning the shit, too. Like, several sessions ago, I decided that now you guys will be waking up a half hour. And, that stuff bothers me. It's kind of a reason why I like to play a game first before I act as a game master. I don't have any sense of basis. I didn't even try to do a whole lot of research about the matter, what other storytellers felt like, because I'm like, this is a vague rule system which people primarily focus upon the setting and the feel of the game. I'm sure there will be a lot of fucking answers because of how old the system is. I don't know what the hell I'm going to get, but it's all going to be conflicted. I just wish White Wolf itself, like the official source, would have given me something. Too often I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. And that's what I feel is my biggest failing, is just unfamiliarity with the system. Of course I have my others. Sometimes I'm abrasive, curt, There was a situation involving Byron Rand and the Dragon Metro Cab Company that was regrettable and unfortunate, which misinformation was spread, and I don't think the proper feeling got carried away. Among other things, that's probably my only sort of hanging gripe about myself. Beyond that, I did a good job. Sometimes I did a better job than others. There's some information I've given you guys that I have fucking forgotten and I don't have in any of my notes, and I don't know what it is. There was one time when you guys asked me something, and I'm like, I'll give you this. And that's a disadvantage of, ad-libbing shit when you make it up on the fly. If you don't make a note of it immediately, and you don't have eidetic memory, like Carter Vanderweyden, poof.
That lucky son of a bitch.
Well, would you take eidetic memory if you had to go into fugue states as well?
Well, I mean, would I have perfect memory of those fugue states?
Well, Carter doesn't, apparently.
It's tempting.
But in that case, I'm glad you were able to have fun in spite of the low willpower.
Yeah. Like I said, I'd rather have low willpower than too much. For exactly the reasons you mentioned.
I wanted people who were familiar with tabletop stuff in general to come along. I really felt that I would need the help in order to try to make the system work. It was pretty ugly. It still is ugly. I could still thumb through the book and still be, as Sean mentioned, like... And, not just because I'm new to the system now, but because the system itself is fuck you, Grimith. Fuck you, players. The fucking book itself, like, if I wanted to make this shit up, then I wouldn't use the book at all. I know I have the freedom to change any rule I see fit. Fuck you, I know that.
You just want some goddamn defaults.
I have the book because I want a tool set. I want a toolbox. I want a kit. I'm okay with all the other stuff too, but I want to mix and match. I know this is not GURPS, where you give me nothing but a toolkit. But I don't want to be on the complete opposite end of the spectrum when you give me, vague rationalizations.
That's why the, Vampire Translation Guide is one of the better-selling World of Darkness books at this point. It, lets you play with the Masquerade setting in the, Requiem rule set.
Yeah, and that's one of the... Oh, I was just going to say, that's the main reasons you actually want to get a rule set. It's for balance reasons, because anyone can make up shit on the fly, but you kind of... I don't know if you've ever tried to balance a rule system. It is a bitch.
Yeah, it is.
I definitely have. And, and that's the reason why players have a game master or a storyteller. It's because you want someone who's neutral to adjudicate rules and to take these messages and to paint the setting and create the sandbox in which you guys play. Otherwise, you guys be playing like cops and robbers or cowboys and Indians. And Joseph would be like, I was waiting in your haven and you couldn't see me, so I shoot you in the head. And Jordan would be like, nuh-uh. And Sean would be like, uh-huh. And then I'd stab myself in the eye.
Well, that sounds compelling. That's the kind of drama that I wish we'd had. Will Grimith lose his eyesight permanently? Will it get recovered eventually? Find out next time on Let's Get On With It, Vampire the Masquerade.
News at 11. YouTuber found dead from knife in the eye. Tabletop gaming blamed.
But
You know,
drama.
Glenn Beck holds an entire segment on a radio show devoted to that's what's wrong with American society.
Exactly.
Vampire the Masquerade. Vampire the Masquerade. Innocent tabletop game. Or sitting, or ticking time bomb.
Yeah, that's not how Glenn Beck talks. He just yells at people.
I'm sorry, I've never seen an episode of Glenn Beck in my life, so I don't know
Good,
how he
don't.
talks.
Just don't. He cries.
Oh, it's great. If you wanna see some guy that seems mentally unhinged talking about conspiracy theories nonstop.
Yeah, it's
there's
non-stop
your man.
conspiracy theories and missions from God.
Aliens?
Yeah,
No,
probably. I mean, okay.
But there is shit like the Bilderberg Group, and it's usually liberal plots. And not, oh look, here they have an agenda. Like, legit, they are engaged in a conspiracy to do X, Y, Z.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I watched him a little bit. I think I can't remember, he was on, before he went to Fox, he was on like CNN or CNBC or MSNBC, one of those stations. And he was all right. He was a little out there, but he was like O'Reilly out there. He was not crazy. Then he moved to Fox and he just went off the reservation. I don't know.
Fox dropped his ass for being too crazy.
A lot of that was he was being, nobody wanted to put ads on the program because, yeah, he was crazy. He wasn't making money anymore. So they gave him a couple years and said, you're out.
Yeah, I think he's basically just on like XM radio now.
This is interesting and all, but what does this have to do with Vampire the Masquerade?
Absolutely
I
not.
don't know. Why do I have to make sense all of a sudden?
You guys have asked me some of your questions, and maybe you haven't formulated others. How do you feel about the internal guts of, taking a peek and seeing some of what was going on? Of course, you guys don't have all of the random rolls I made, or, maybe potential what-if ideas I had in my head, and that's fine, because they're not real. Just like this game. No, it actually happened, it is real, but I mean, I like to ask players about this. It's sort of like a magician type thing. Like, did I shatter the illusion for you? Has it been ruined? Do you go, poop feces?
I liked it. I wish that I'd had even more time to poke it and see what else fell out.
There is a few things I want to keep secretive, only for the fact that being the storyteller, I feel there's some things that just shouldn't be revealed, no matter what. But that's me being coy. I'll take those with me to my grave.
You coy bitch.
I know, but anything else? I mean, don't hesitate. I mean, you guys get to see and flip through all of the maps. Well, not all of them, because I have deleted a few of them, but you come up with an idea about where something could have gone, and feel free to continue to ask each other questions. And that's what we're here for. I mean, of course, we'll always have Skype, but, get the situation where it's current in our minds now, as opposed to, maybe Cripson wants to ask Sean a question about the VtM game that we played, 2 months from now. You're like, what?
Oh, okay. How many times did Kadir and Theo have to roll to avoid frenzying in Elysium as a direct result of being frustrated with us?
Avoid frenzy in Elysium? 0
Yes.
times.
Really?
I didn't have that situation there. No,
Damn it.
I didn't think that was appropriate. They're too knowledgeable, too in control of each other. You guys didn't do anything that was directly threatening to them. There was just a massive concentration of what they assumed, perhaps correctly, to be supreme idiocy. Now, there was a situation in which you had Theo Bell at Astoria Real Estate, where he was at risk. You, of course, had a situation in which Byron directed a presence attack against Kadir in Joseph's church, in which something could have gone wrong. And perhaps the most memorable example, you have what actually happened to Kadir when he botched, in result to the sort of dumb words that were being thrown back at his dumb "I'm the prince" statement, and so he lost his goddamn mind. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, you botched your self-control, Kadir? Are you fucking kidding me? I had not expected that to happen, but the dice told me it did. And rather than fudging them, I went along with the dice. And that resulted in Duke Wily flashing and staking Kadir in the heart in one fell swoop, and that being that.
Was Theo actually going to have suplexed Marcus through that window?
Please be yes.
Would you like for this to be one of the magic secrets I never tell you?
You know what? I think I would.
Because if I learned that he would never have done it, I would be like, aww.
That would break the illusion for me.
Oh, alright. Well, we'll add that to the list of secrets I'll take with me to my grave.
The unsung hero of this entire story, Theo Bell. All he wanted to do was to get the fuck out of the city.
I mean, he's pretty sung by our coterie. He was a pretty great dude.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's pretty well sung at this point. Yeah.
Like, I've got nothing but thumbs up for him. And maybe below 5.
Yeah, I mean, Byron's a little bummed that Theo kind of yelled at him that time. He liked him.
What I'm amused by, and perhaps a little perplexed, is how through all of this, Cripson's favorite character in the entire campaign ends up being Kadir. I'd like for you to explain that, Cripson.
I just really like the idea of a rough around the edges Sheriff Toreador. I can't get it. And the fact that he had a very Middle Eastern sounding name too. All of those things together made him just seem so interesting, and I wanted to hear more about it. And although that's probably the character Byron had the most friction with in the entire campaign, I was actually sad to see him go. Even though, I said, yeah, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy or whatever I said when Sevalod took him. I was like, damn it. Because I thought that whole arc, because he was on the road to becoming prince, and that would have made Byron's life a lot more difficult. Byron himself made his life a lot more difficult, so he didn't really need help. But that whole dynamic would have been interesting. But I just really like the idea of Kadir as the kind of shall we say, kind of blunt and kind of not necessarily the nicest guy. Maybe it was only the Byron that, maybe other people liked him, but it seems to me that he was not the sociable type of Toreador. So it was interesting.
A lot of people liked his bluntness.
Yeah. That ends up being perhaps the coterie's private claim to fame. If ever you have any concerns about what impact did you guys make on the princedom itself, Kadir. Because of how suspicious and distrusting of you that he became, he decided to personally investigate you, not with any deputies, but with himself. And he was so confident in his capabilities that he did not think the Toreador among you who had aspects which Kadir would know because he has Auspex, would see him. And he was so willing and so convinced that he wanted to root out and see with your own eyes just how bad you fuckers were. And your utter, absolute, heart-crushing failures of how you fucking lost Leslie Cutter and all the other dumb shit that fucking Byron did. And how willingly you tattled on each other, and how you let a mercenary ghoul drive the coterie and fucking take control of Leslie. And he went there himself, which was a reckless and brash decision on his part, which I made rolls for him to see whether he would turn away, and he was fully committed to going with you all the entire way. And Marcus had an opportunity to do something about that. It was in his court. He never did, so it ended up going down that way. But directly, because Kadir followed you guys, you all had an impact in who became the next prince, in a concrete and real way.
That was Marcus's greatest failure.
Because Kadir, with Kadir being changed like that, that set off a massive series of dominoes, which culminated in Carter Vanderwayne being the last man standing.
So
Last-
what is, so
Go ahead,
all
go
these
ahead.
things that Byron being stupid. So Byron did this thing stupid, and it ended up Kadir not being in his way, which for Byron was a really good thing. Secondly, he tried to go through a metal detector with a gun, and they didn't have to fight a werewolf. I'm saying, yeah, that he had the lucky merit, definitely, and he just didn't even know how lucky he was.
So, side note, at the start of this game, I would have expected Byron to end up with, like, high status and political favor and shit like that. And David is the one I would have expected that the least of.
Yeah, I didn't. What's funny is I did not expect that from Byron because just the way I'd set him up, he was starting in the hole. And he still has, as Grimith brought up earlier, he's still got his sire to deal with. It'll come up eventually if he wants to get anything done. People are going to start looking into it even more. So he's still got hurdles.
Who disguises his sire. As I pointed out, Valentine actually disguises his sire, and I suppose we'll reveal this. Valentine is a lower generation than Byron is. He has a poor class, he is a lower class peasant who came from Europe during the halcyon age pre-World War I, where, kindred were just sort of willy-nilly siring people. He's from that. And he's completely done a wonderful job of disguising any origin at all. That is the biggest reason he does not want to become prince. Because he doesn't want that question coming up, someone digging too deep and looking too harshly at it, and realizing that he's a low-class French peasant who escaped during the whole sort of cleansing phase when the kindred there realized they'd really sire too many.
I actually kind of figured something like that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting what his reaction to who Byron's sire is, because given who she is and where she is, there might be a few hundred years difference in there, but he may have heard of her, so it would be interesting.
So, which kindred in the city actually did have a generation lower than 8?
Lower you mean as in 9th through 13th, or lower you mean as in,
Numerically.
Okay. Numerically lower? You want lower and not tie, because lower? Sevalod.
Right, obviously Sevalod and Germain.
See, Sevalod, Germain, Archbishop Francisco Domingo de Polonia, who was here for a little bit.
Lombok Ruthen?
He wasn't in this city during the entire story. That's
Tzimisce himself.
Yeah, Tzimisce itself. Germain, Sevalod, Polonia, Tzimisce. That's it. Those are your only and yes. Catherine Weiss.
What is her generation?
7th. You may recall her description. You may also know her as a Katerina the Wise.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
That Catherine Weiss?
Yeah.
I never caught on to it.
Oh.
Isn't it just seems weird that in Redemption, like all of her followers became Sabbat members and she became a Camarilla member.